something that I think is really important is being really curious. So
Kia ora, and welcome to a special guest edition of the New Zealand Property Market Podcast, brought to you by Cotality. I'm Nick Goodall, Head of Research for Cotality, and today, to recognise and celebrate International Women's Day 2026, I'm joined by Nicole Ferguson, National Director for Loan Market NZ. Nicole, thanks so much for coming on the show. How are things going?
thank you, Nick, and thanks Cotality for having me for a very special week for us women in finance, especially.
Yep, no, it's certainly one I look forward to every year. So glad to have you on board this year. And I thought let's kick things off then. And firstly, I kind of like to get to know you a little bit more personally. What makes you tick and what keeps you busy on your weekend. So yeah, what's of interest for Nicole Ferguson?
Well, you can probably hear from a little bit of my accent there, Nick, that I actually am from Australia. So I'm actually from country Victoria originally. So I'm a little bit of a country girl. And I'd say on the weekends, and what I've done since moving to New Zealand is really gotten involved in doing some hiking. And I'm a little bit of a waterfall chaser. So definitely enjoy looking for all the waterfalls. I think I've done most of them in the north so far, but definitely keen to see more throughout New Zealand. There's some pretty beautiful waterfalls here.
Yeah, okay, impressive. Yeah, I've certainly done a bit of not like trekking, but trail running and things. And you do come past some waterfalls. I can't say I pay too much attention to them, but maybe I should pay more attention to those. And yeah, they certainly can be pretty mind-blowing when you do see a big one especially. So totally get that. And maybe that's why you fit into New Zealand so well as well. I didn't quite realise you were from the country of Victoria, the country area rather than being a townie, but maybe that's why you fit in so well in New Zealand. So yeah, always good to catch up.
Definitely.
And so, what about from a professional perspective then? I know that, what is it, 15 odd years in the lending industry. I know about half of that's probably been at loan market. So, you do want to tell us a bit more about your professional experience and that career trajectory that you've been through?
Yeah, definitely. So yes, it has been 15 years. You make me feel quite old when you say that to me, Nick. But I started my finance career 15 years ago, which was actually being an advisor myself or in an admin role and then being an advisor. And then I trajectoried into aggregation, which is where I actually ended up with the loan market group. So I've done quite a number of roles within the loan market group. I'm pretty proud to say that it's been a really great place to grow my career. So what I've sort of done throughout my career is I have actually led the Victorian and Tasmanian network, which was quite an intensive role, and I can talk a little bit more around those challenges that I went through in that. I also have done a general manager role in the technology piece in the business as well, which was around bringing our customers, being our advisors, closer to our technology team and working with them around our products and what we can do to make a better experience for not only our advisors, but for our customers, more importantly as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds really, broad breadth, right? And I think nothing beats when you've been at that front line to start with, and then you get to move through that management because you have a real understanding and recognition of, how tough it is or the challenges that happen at that front line. Any particular highlights that spring to mind through that period? Probably mostly at that loan market group.
Yeah, look, I've been pretty lucky to go through some of our real peak moments in the company. So we've obviously done some acquisitions. So within Australia, we actually brought Plan, Choice and Fast, which were three aggregators, which was a very big project and a really growth moment for me to go through with the leadership team there as well. Obviously going through and coaching and training some of our very successful team members throughout our business, which now are in senior leader roles. I've had that opportunity to as well, and especially some females that I've had to do too. And most recently having one of our very own Kiwis move to Australia, being Debony, who's moved over to Sydney recently. So proud to say that I've been very strong in helping guide some of our females in our business, but obviously in my career, been very lucky to be a part of some really major projects in the business as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of those acquisitions, any growth I think is really exciting. And when you grow through acquisition, I think that can be a really interesting one because you get to see so many other new and different things. So yeah, you can absolutely see why that would be a highlight. Let's flip it then. What about some of the challenges through your career? I think, one of the interesting conversations we always have at this time of the year is, some of the difficult hurdles to rise to those executive levels for females, especially in a male-dominated industry like finance. Can you talk through some of those challenges you've sort of dealt with through the last few years?
Yes, definitely. It's probably within our industry, it's ever changing. So I think that's sort of what what I've learned, even coming across the ditch as well. Which, for me in Australia, I've obviously been through the Royal Commission, which was something that was fairly pivotal in that time of my leadership tenure. We went through Best Interest Duty as well, which was quite a lot of work too. And then coming to New Zealand, it's obviously been very similar. We've gone through, or coming into the recession, I think, and seeing that actually go through. As well as going through all these FMA changes that have been coming through as well, and better and supporting our customers, but an ever-changing market and having to adapt and make sure that we're educating our advisors and being able to adapt our systems and processes at the same time as well. But definitely been through most of those challenges, I feel, throughout my career as well.
That Royal Commission must have been a big one, right? Maybe that's why you've done it so easy over here and made it look easy with any FMA changes. Anything they throw at you can't be nothing compared to what you had to go through in Royal Commission, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Royal Commission was definitely a big insight to going through and seeing all those changes, and we adapted really well. I think that was something I was proud to say, that Sam White was a very pivotal leader in that for our industry and for our business. So we're proud to be a part of the group at the time, but it came with a lot of challenges and a lot of our advisors having to adapt the way they did business, but also us as a company. And I think, leading change is never easy. I think that's probably one of the hardest parts about being in a role, in any type of role and in any type of company, is change management is really tough. And I think we still go through that every day. And I think that's probably maybe why, I don't know, Nick, if that's probably why when I've come to New Zealand, I've adapted to those changes, but certainly has been good to have those insights just to how, obviously, the regulators think and what could be coming.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the experience to do it, right? Which has no doubt kind of helped. Anything more specific on the challenges for a female in the finance industry for you that you sort of noted as you've gone through the ranks?
Yeah, look, it is hard in relation to when you're sort of sitting in those rooms and you're probably one of the only females in those rooms at times. I think it comes down to having that confidence to be able to speak up and having that point of view. Sometimes, as women, we kind of feel like we probably overthink. If not, we probably don't feel like we have that voice. And I think that's one thing that I've always tried to coach and talk through, and also myself, that self-coaching as well, is to make sure that, if I've got something important to say, that I say it, and I think about what I am saying in those moments. But I think especially when you're going through change, it's really important to speak up, would be something I would say, but definitely challenging because, sometimes when you say something, you don't always know if you've hit the nail on the head there. So,
Yeah, it seems to be
yeah.
that thing that, the imposter syndrome probably affects females more than males. And I think there's that, stat or that line that's often referenced that, a guy will see a job description and go, I can do, one fifth of it, so I'm going to apply. Whereas a female goes, I can't do one fifth of that, so I'm not going to apply. And it's just that different mentality, right? So I like that. And I suppose, like you say, just knowing that you've got the knowledge, you've got the expertise, and then having that confidence to talk up in those situations, and hopefully be in environments that are open and welcoming of that too, which as I think you've already spoken about, loan market certainly provided you that opportunity, which is must have been brilliant to be a part of.
Definitely was, yes.
Let's talk in a bit more detail then around the transition from Australia. And I'm kind of keen to hear a bit more about what being National Director of Loan Market NZ actually means. What do you kind of do in your role? What drives you, and sort of how, what makes you turn up every day to that role and want to make a difference, I guess.
Yeah, so moving across the ditch, probably something that I'm pretty proud to say that was an exciting career opportunity for me. I think a lot of people have asked me that question multiple times. Usually the Kiwis move to Australia. I'm an Australian moving to New Zealand. But pretty proud to be here, and I'm really enjoying obviously what New Zealand has to offer, but obviously dealing with some really great business people as well. And I think that's probably one thing that I would say in relation to our business owners is getting to know them. And that's probably what drives me every day. Is they're very ambitious, they're very customer focused, and I think they're always striving to do more and be more. We're obviously a very high productivity team, being loan market, and I think that's one thing that I love, is that you can have a really healthy discussion with our business owners about how they can service their customers get better, and also how we can support them better. And always striving for that gives you a really great drive to get up and work harder every day. What does my role encompass? So basically, National Director of Loan Market New Zealand, which means that I've got a team that work with me in relation to sales, marketing, compliance, and systems and processes and so forth. So that does entail quite a lot of work and quite a lot of diversity, which is something I do enjoy in my career, which means that, no day is the same. And I'd say that working alongside our business owners, but working on the business and in the business a lot as well, which is something that I love, which is driving strategy. We recently just did our strategy meetings a couple of weeks ago now in relation to what's our vision for 2026 for our business owners, but also for our team. And I'm really lucky to be surrounded by a very high-performing team in the loan market team, especially in driving that and looking at new ways that we can help our advisors grow.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like the model you guys seem to work. The closeness that your sort of commercial team work with those business owners seems quite unique to me. So, yeah, definitely looks great from the outside looking in as well. And certainly some of that detail you're talking about makes sense. In terms of some of the leadership support that loan market's given to you through that time too, you sort of touched on earlier that there's been great support for you to move through those different ranks. But is there anything in particular as well that loan market has done to encourage your leadership and bring you through the ranks there?
Yes, so I have been very lucky within the loan market group. Sam White is very much a female advocate, and I was actually brought into the business by a very strong female, being Ange McNaughton, who's now actually a loan market business owner in Melbourne. So for me, I've been surrounded by really great people, but on top of that, have had the opportunity to go to many of our, advisor-led sort of leadership conferences that we do. So, getting the opportunity to go to Harvard Business School, I don't think I would have ever thought that in my younger years,
Yeah,
that I'd
wow.
get those opportunities. But on top of that, also getting access to some business coaching, which is what has been set up by our leadership team here as well. And I'm very lucky to have a business coach. His name is David Joyce. He's very good at teaching me lots of things around how my mind and what I sort of think and how I'm setting up to, be the leader that I want to be, which has been really great as well. And, on top of that, we have a very big leadership team within Australia, and also we're growing that in New Zealand. We've had some really great new leaders come on board. So lucky to be surrounded by some really high performing people, but also being extremely lucky to be a part of programs, well, not only by myself in relation to my coaching, but also with our advisors that have had that opportunity as well. So
Yeah, no, it's a heck of a setup, and yeah, definitely makes sense as to how you've made it to where you are today. Cool. Well, given we are here to celebrate International Women's Day for 2026, I'm keen to hear kind of what does it mean to you. This year, I know there's a couple of sort of themes that are being run around the world. The first one is Give to Gain, which really highlights the power of collaboration and generosity, reciprocity to accelerate that gender equity. And the other one that's being used or tagged into quite a bit is the Balance the Scales version, which focuses on justice and that systematic change, which I think we've seen, occurring over the last few years. Do either of those themes spark any particular feelings for you, or are you guys running a more general expectation around just supporting women in leadership?
yes, so they definitely are really powerful, and I think it's really good just talking about those themes in general. I think they're, obviously driving impact and how we sort of, want to go ways forward. I think with our group in particular, we're really proud that we actually launched in New Zealand our Leading Ladies group and our community. We do run that in Australia as well, which has been going for a number of years, but in New Zealand we launched that last year, and our president Karen Taddison, who's one of our leading ladies in loan market New Zealand, who's been with us for 20 years actually this year. So we're celebrating that. What a powerful woman in finance that we have there as well. But I think for us, celebrating International Women's Day and taking that moment to celebrate that on top of having these themes, I think really give us some talking points and, some things to focus on together and make sure that we're sharing our experiences. And we're great, and lucky to have those communities to share that with.
I guess easy to embrace when you've got these incredibly powerful and impressive women already in the business, right? Like it's just an extra opportunity to just up that pedestal a little bit more. And I know that you've got Paulette Trotter who keeps winning the New Zealand awards for the Mortgage Advisor of the Year, and so again, when you've got these people that are already stepping forward, just that little bit easier to push them forward, right? So I think you guys are in a great position to make the most of a day like this.
Yeah, definitely. I think with Paulette in particular, she's actually our global international. Obviously, I'm going to, really hone in on that advisor of the year, which was something that was astounding. Her number of Google reviews. I think you can just look her up and dealing with, Paulette in general. She's always thinking of ways of how to service her customers better, and I think that speaks to her success. But also, yeah, she's an amazing woman in relation to how she's grown her business.
Yeah, we've had her on the podcast. So for anyone listening, go and listen to that version. Quickly Google or search for that version and go and listen to when Paulette came on here. It was a beauty. It was one of the early ones too. So she really led the way with the loan market advisors coming on here. So once again, thank you and the team for allowing those advisors to come on and help out all our listeners too. So always been a good one for me. I am keen, of course, we do release our Women in Property report at this time of the year at Cotality as well. I'm keen to delve into some of the insights and get your thoughts on those as well. And the first one I wanted to talk about was that we added a little bit of extra insight this year on some of the different generations as well. So we're still focusing on that gender disparity and where some of the differences occur, but especially when it occurs across generations. And there were some really stark figures, particularly for Gen Z, with only 33% of the females in this generation owning their own home, compared to 53% of Gen Z males. Does that stat surprise you? Do you focus much on the differences across the different age groups from a home ownership perspective?
It's a little bit unchanged in relation to what it sort of was. I think what we sort of highlight there is around the education, especially for those Gen Zs. How can we educate the Gen Zs and give those females more confidence in relation to buying property? I think that's probably something that highlights to me from the statistics, especially when we're looking at, those age demographics versus, female and male in relation to home ownership as well.
It can be a pretty daunting process, right? Like for anyone, I mean, what's Gen Z under 30, I suppose, now? So coming in, needing a lot of information, you probably should buy a house, as everyone's sort of told to do so, but you've really got no idea where to start. And I think, broker aggregators, broker advisors, the people themselves are such good educators as well. And I guess that's the role that you guys can play in that space, right?
Yes, definitely. So I think that's something we want to play more into, more so. And I think this report's a great report to get started. So Cotality's have done a great job on this report.
Sparks that conversation, hopefully. And I think for that Gen Z as well, I think they're called like the digital native generation. They've grown up with these digital tools right from day one.
Yeah.
And so they're used to that. But even within that, I think the stat that we showed in the report was that 16% of all women, so it's not just Gen Z here, so they don't know where or how to start compared to just 6% of women. So I think that goes to your point around, there is a lot of information required here. Females tend to be a little bit more unsure. And from that lending perspective then, how do we simplify that how-to for female first home buyers who might feel overwhelmed by that process? How do we really help them out in that process?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few multiple ways. Our advisors within our network, the one thing I'm proud to say is that we're at 48% of business owners that are female in our network. And I would say that would make it a really easy way for us as women to start to promote that on the education sector. I think for us around what we can do is, providing step-by-step guides for females in relation to how they can get a deposit or how they can prepare for that, how they can go through the pre-approval journey and then how they can search for property and get to that settlement moment of success. I think, talking to women around, their borrowing capacities and, obviously talking to an advisor around that is really important. I think having the confidence to start to do your research early, I think, talking to an advisor earlier versus, thinking that it's an impossible get is something that we need to start to empower women to do, especially in that age range. And then I really want to make sure that we're running some workshops, that are female dedicated that, we can do with our women. And that's something I think a group of our women are going to be coming to and talking about actually in one of our International Women's Day luncheons that we're going to be running very soon as well. So how do we provide that and how do we give more education? And I guess more access to information that we can do as well that can better educate. So lots of things that we can do and lots of things that we do. And then obviously lots of things that we're planning to do as well. So
yeah. Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, that sounds like there is plenty there. And like I say, with almost 50% of females there yourself, I think, that familiarity is going to help to start with. And then having those programs are going to be huge on that part. To delve a little bit more deeper, what else was really interesting about in the survey that it also talked about, not only are females, not doing it as often and they feel like they need more information, they also placed more importance on having that home ownership, yet, they're not doing it. And so, there's a big connection we need to make there. Often it's referenced in the survey that it's about stability. That's why they want that home, right? Now, that can be because they want stability for their living arrangement, they want that for their family, and of course, they want that financial stability as well that a house can give you. Can you tell me about how that sort of resonates with you? How's that gone for your experience? You know, like stability maybe wasn't quite there when you were moving countries, but yeah, how does
Yeah.
that sort of trigger your thoughts in terms of how you've felt through your life with the most important things for you and where a home fits in that as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think it just reinforces that the demand's not the issue. It's actually access and confidence in that age range, which is probably the issues that we're sort of talking about in this in particular. I think for myself, I definitely was always wanting a home, but obviously that, the know-how and how to, and I'm very lucky that I'm in an industry that gives me that education and access. So it does sort of ring true to me and how we can do that better and how we can talk to, females around that. I think as a female myself, they're all the things that you think of, and we're always, making sure. And I think that speaks to obviously even in leadership, we're always thinking about, are we quite ready and, when to have those conversations. So it's a matter of broaching those sooner and empowering women to do that. So I would say that sort of, talks about home ownership and obviously, leadership as well. I think having confidence is key in, any type of situation, and these two in particular being very important in your life, we need to do better and educate better on as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like there's good plans in place, so I'm sure it's going to continue to grow and grow. Now, of course, we can't talk about the disparity in ownership without talking about the income disparity between females and males. It has probably slightly improved, but it's very, very small margins, right? And this year, we sort of changed the way we looked at this data. The stat that we're sort of talking about more frequently now is that in the survey, we saw that 25% of males earn more than $100,000, whereas it's only 12% for females. So again, it's a different way of talking about the same subject. It is a reflection of, years and years and decades of gender inequality in the workplace, which, as I said, we're making slow improvements on. In the meantime, though, it does feel like it's a good time for that reminder of the value of a mortgage advisor and being able to identify those ways to, get in despite that gap. And you kind of touched on it there. And one thing I always talk about is, many people need to look past the headlines. All they think, they've heard that, there's a loan to value ratio and there's a deposit requirement of 20%. So until I've got 20% of the house I want to buy, I'm not going to go and talk to someone. And you touched on before that we need to, have those conversations earlier, right? Come and talk to people. Can you talk more about maybe that and the strength of loan market and your advisors when it comes to navigating, those ever changing too, because it's 20% now, it's changed over time. The limits from the banks changes over time. It's a pretty complex lending environment, right? Is that where the specialty of talking to an advisor comes in?
Definitely. So I think the one thing that in talking to advisor earlier versus, when you're actually already looking at property is really key. I think that, in relation to there is no sort of criteria or, the lending criteria can be quite unique and different. I think in particular, with talking to an advisor, they can help structure a loan that suits you, which is something that's really key to how you work with an advisor, how you're looking at property and something that could be more achievable than when you are sort of out looking at property from there as well. I think there's a lot of different lenders that have lots of different policies, and that's one of the key things that advisors do in helping educate customers around that journey as well, I think is really important too. And I guess, setting up a plan with an advisor on, where should they be looking, there's really great market insights that advisors have from their experience in working with multiple customers, and usually in their areas, they're, to be seen as experts. So, not only are they experts at the lending criteria and scenarios and coming up with solutions, they're also really good at experts at knowing the area and the local area and connecting you to your local professionals as well. So it goes beyond just a mortgage advisor and the bank. There's obviously more people that are needed, and your advisor on that journey is the person that, can help you find the right people for that and building your entourage as such, in your purchasing journey.
That's a great point, right? Like those advisors become that central point. They can connect you to a lawyer and to anyone else that you need throughout that process. They've got access to the tools. Hopefully they're using Cotality's Property Guru as well to get all the detail about that property information as well. So they really do become that central connector, don't they? Which, you can't beat. And like you say, the sooner you go and talk to someone, the more information you've got and the better you can plan for, what that plan or that road to home ownership looks like. So yeah, couldn't agree more about that. Before I've got a few leadership questions I want to get to shortly. And we're going to try and make them a bit more quick fire, as quick fire as we can, I suppose, for these conversations, because I tend to ramble a bit too much. But anyway, just wanted to give one more plug as well for the report, particularly because this time around we've also looked a bit more at sustainability and that angle of ensuring that people are buying sustainable properties at the same time. There's also a bit of a generational split here, not so much a gender thing, which I suppose is probably a good news story. But again, if we focus on those Gen Z people, that generation, then we see that 33% of Gen Z have actually made significant energy upgrades to their property once they do get their house, compared to 25% of the older generation in that baby boomer space. Do you think that's also a situation where it's more about awareness and understanding of the options out there, or a bit of a combination of those things? What's your take, maybe your experience through understanding, we're going through a pretty fast changing time through climate change and sustainable options in housing. Where do you sit with all that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's an awareness thing with the Gen Zers. I also think it's a cost of living pressure as well. So obviously looking at different ways of how they can actually save money, but being conscious about the environment. I think that's something that you can see in that sort of Gen Z generation where they're really focusing on that as well. And I think that's the long-term focuses that these age demographics are looking at now versus, the boomers that probably back then were just trying to get into the housing market, and there wasn't a lot of education or opportunity back then around what was the impacts to the environment. And, obviously global warming probably wasn't showing the signs that it does today. I think we're seeing a lot of those signs now within any country.
Heck yeah. I mean, yeah, there's, no better examples more recently than all the storms that are coming through and the extra flooding that's, the more frequent 1 in 100 year floods, which seem to happen much more often than 1 in 100 years. So yeah, it's certainly becoming more prevalent, and it's good to see, people recognizing that. Like I say, more people that are comfortable. I suppose those younger generations get to understand that. But at the same time, I think your point's right, about that cost of living, that actually the good thing now is that even, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, you would be putting solar on or you'd be making these sustainability improvements. But often because it felt like the right thing to do, the cost payback wasn't really there. But even in this short 5 or 10 year period, I went to the New Zealand Green Building Council 20th anniversary the other week. And, just how fast it's moved now to not just be the best thing for the environment, but you genuinely can save money by doing these more sustainable options too. So once again, hopefully this sparks that conversation, sparks that education across generations, and we see more people taking hold of that. And that starts to improve our housing stock over time as well. Our energy efficiency, the amount of energy we can consume, all of these things are heading in the right direction. But I suppose it can't happen fast enough. So yeah, it's heading in the right direction once again, but no, hopefully it happens even faster than we've been seeing so far.
Yeah, and definitely I think lenders are also taking note on that as well. I think a lot of our lenders now, I think ANZ, ASB, BNZ, Westpac are offering green loans, which is something that is, quite an interesting pivot as well that we're seeing. So it's not just the Gen Zers. I think the banks are also onto it as well. And obviously our advisors are very across that. So speaking to an advisor about that, if you're really conscious, is really key, because there are lenders that are also thinking about it too.
Totally agree. That's the kicker, right? Once the finance companies are involved, then yeah, it starts to make a real difference. So yeah, it is great to see them all embracing that, and whether it is you're building to a higher building code or the green options, it's a great point. All right, well let's get back to some leadership questions now. I'm keen to get your take on, your leadership experience, a few things property. Like we can't get out of here without talking about genuine property questions. So I want to get back to you and your experiences throughout your career. Firstly, what was the last thing you did that genuinely scared you professionally? I don't want to hear about some waterfall you stood over. We'll talk about some waterfalls soon. But professionally, what scared you more recently?
Moving countries, Nick, I think that's
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
scary. Yeah, definitely moving from Australia to New Zealand was probably daunting in itself, not knowing, too much about New Zealand, and probably being, I can say it because I am Australian, a bit of overconfident Australian, thinking that us and Kiwis were the same. And that was probably something I underestimated, in the way that, it is different, a very different way of living, very different way. And, obviously really love the Kiwi way of living, but didn't anticipate those to be such a big change.
Yeah, no, I think it's something we do hear a bit more often is, as much as even we've got the same businesses, whether it's banks or real estate agencies, and so there is some consistency across, the Tasman, but there's always a little nuance of difference too, and yeah, that's no doubt been something you've had to adjust to. But again, from my perspective, you've done it incredibly well, so got to give you props there. on the sort of style or attributes of leaders, what attribute or attributes do you think are required to be a strong leader in the finance industry?
I think it's around, I think we touched a little bit around change. So, someone who's adaptable to change. And probably something that I think is really important is being really curious. So, something that we actually do within our company is do a curiosity day. And I do put my team through that as well in presenting curiosities at our strategy days as well. Because I think, in order to become a good leader, you've got to be curious yourself and you've got to lead by example. And I think that's something that I think is a really good quality on top of obviously, making sure that you're really good at change.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. No, two great points. Now, I'm going to have to go away from quickfire because it's triggered something in my mind that we have to at least broach very briefly. And that is that when I hear curiosity, I always think about what everyone talks about with AI and, everything that's going on in that space, right? They just go, just be curious, go and use all the tools you can use, you can find some efficiencies. So in the AI space, what tools are you guys using? Have you guys embraced that fully? Have you guys been able to, let the advisors take advantage of that? What's loan market done in that AI space? I'm intrigued to know.
Well, there is lots coming. So I think the one thing is we are excited about AI. I think that's something that we're not shying away from. Within our own MyCRM system, we're doing a lot of initiatives and upgrades in relation to making it more AI focused. But we also recently partnered with Afterburner, which is an AI business that's helping advisors be able to get to quicker assessments for their customers, but also, helping them with, voice recordings and so forth in relation to their advice. I'm actually in Sydney at the moment at a Salesforce conference learning about AI as well. So, as a leadership team, we're very much exposing ourselves to getting comfortable with AI and how we can implement that to our business owners. But most importantly, we're going on that journey. I don't believe that AI will replace an advisor, and it's very prevalent in these discussions that I'm having at this moment. But I do think it is going to give a better customer journey, and I think that anything that we can do to help our advisors on that journey, which is obviously what we've done with partnering with Afterburner, but also what we're building within our MyCRM system. We're excited that we'll be showing more of that this year and be focusing on that more to help with our customers at the end goal there as well.
Very exciting. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Using AI to free up maybe the monotonous tasks that give you more time to go face to face. And those tools are certainly going to help that. And yes, Jeff from Afterburner has also been on our podcast. So look, plenty of connections across the industry. It's great to hear. So once again, if you want to know more about Afterburner, we've got a podcast for that too. Go and give that a listen. But let me get back to my quick fire-ish questions. I'm keen to hear, do you have one particular piece of advice for someone starting out in their first job, whether it's finance or not? Maybe it's something you remember a previous leader that you hold in high stead has said to you. What sort of any advice that you could impart on any listeners right now?
I think it probably leads into, obviously making sure that if you've got an idea, that you voice it. And that comes down to having confidence. So I think throughout my career, I've been somebody that's, had a lot of ideas. I'd like to say I'm quite curious. And in that journey of curiosity is, being able to put that together as a process of thought, whether that's writing a paper or whether that's putting it in front of someone, having a conversation. But it's having that confidence to go and have that conversation and putting it forwards to, the right people to sort of get that idea out there. I would say on my journey and learning about that is, with coming with curiosity, it's not just blurting it out. Make sure you consider it in your thinking around, what you're sort of going to put forward. And as I always like to do is, really thinking about what's the goal of what I want to get out in this conversation, and talking to those people because, there isn't a lot of time when you get to talk to some of these senior leaders. So making sure you're concise, you've got your plan in place and that you do say it. And if anything, I would say it comes down to just be confident enough to speak up. That's something that I think, especially as a female, we shy away from probably doing that more so than males. But I think I'd love to see more women speak up around their curiosities and ideas because there's some of the things that I've seen come out of our company alone be some of the best, works that we've done within this company. So that would be my
Ah,
advice.
brilliant advice. I love it. No, well said. Okay, then moving on to what is one thing you hope the industry looks like for the next generation of women? So, thinking, I don't know, a few years ahead from now.
I want to see more women in leadership. I think especially in New Zealand, we have some really strong female leaders here that I've gotten the absolute pleasure of meeting. I think you even had Nicole, who was actually from Kiwi Bank on this podcast last year.
That's right.
She's fantastic as well. And you obviously got Taryn, who's in your business from Cotality as well. So I think we're surrounded by some really great females. It'd be, more so of having some of those younger females come up and come through the ranks and empowering women, in leadership roles and working alongside those. But I think we've got the right stead of some really strong females, but it's how do we come together better as a community. And I think with our Leading Ladies event that we run, I'd love to see that more in our broader professional industry here, of bringing that together more, and I hope to lead that charge with our own market Leading Ladies.
I love it. I look forward to checking in I don't know, 10 years' time, and let's see where those numbers are at. But great ambition. Love that. Okay, I'm going to drag you into my world very briefly. In one word or a very short sentence, I'll allow, how would you describe the New Zealand property market right now?
I think it's on the way up. And sorry, I'm not good at giving you one word answers there, Nick. I definitely think there's a lot of confidence, and obviously working alongside Daniel Colson from Ray White, we're seeing a lot more happening in the market. And, we obviously recently had an expo last week that talked to that in particular. So I think there's a lot of confidence, and sorry, to get back to the one word, it's on the way up.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. Unless you didn't use something like green shoots, which is way overwarm. So keep it simple on the way up. I think that's
Yeah.
fair. Okay, and then from a real property perspective, maybe if you're looking for a property, what is the one non-negotiable feature you look for in a property? What can you not ignore if you're buying a property?
I have two answers to this, Nick, and I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'll allow, I'll allow it.
I would say I do like having a backyard, but one pet peeve I have around property and when I'm looking at property is I don't like having a shower bath. So that is something I know you can do renovations on that, but I think living through that, I have done that where I did buy a home that had a shower bath, and until I could afford to do the renovations, it was a real pet peeve of mine. So, but a backyard's really important too. I think having a nice backyard is nice as well.
You're definitely showing the country Victorian in you if you want that space out the backyard, right? I think that's also very Kiwi, of course. The shower bath. I mean, I agree for what it's worth. I think the worst thing about them is they often come with those stupid curtains. They're even worse. But
Mine did
yes,
have a little bit of a window pane, but
okay.
no, it was just the climbing in and out and slipping over. So yeah, having to live through that prior to renovations it's really stuck in my mind.
I'll have to talk to the team about like, do we have a flag in there that shows it's a shower bath in that bathroom? Um, I reckon it's probably a common thing in New
Mm.
Zealand. It's probably something to do with the families, and it's one bathroom. And as you're growing up with a young family in the I don't know 60s, 70s when all our houses were built, maybe it was just practicality, right? But look, I never even go there, but it's a great point. Okay, and then one more personal one. Triggered me with you thinking about those waterfalls. Is there a particular waterfall, like if you're that much of a chaser, is there a particular waterfall you can think of as your favorite that you want to go back to again?
Yeah, well, I've actually been back to it twice already. It
Okay.
is the waterfall near Raglan, which is, I'm fairly sure, called the Bridal Veil Waterfall. I went there well, I've been there twice, and the second time I went there, it had just been raining, and the velocity of that waterfall when it's just been raining was just. It almost takes, the noise away, and all you can hear is the power of that waterfall. I know that sounds a bit, interesting in the way I think about that, but it's something that I really enjoy from a nice waterfall, other than the picturesque. But that waterfall being so powerful, it's definitely worth a visit. But if anybody's got any recommendations, I'm all for it in relation to any waterfalls that are out there that are better than that one.
I'll turn this into a waterfall podcast, but no, I like it. It makes me think about. I remember driving on the west coast of the South Island, and that's what everyone says. You actually want to be driving there when it's raining because you get these incredible waterfalls that you drive straight past, and it's just the power that's you kind of sit there in awe, and the sound of it is just incredible. So hey, you're turning me around to it, so I like it. Well, that's pretty much us for today. So look, it's been an amazing chat. Thank you so much for coming on. Great to get that time with you. I know you've been very busy and travel and whatnot, so it's great to be able to, grab, I don't know, 30 or 40 minutes out of your diary and really celebrate International Women's Day for 2026 with, what has been a really wide-ranging discussion. Do you have any final thoughts or any words or any other important advice you want to impart before we get on out of here?
Yes, I would say for all the women celebrate International Women's Day, whether that's just from coming together with a group of women, or friends or family, make sure that we do celebrate it. It's something that I think is really important. And I know that we're doing that with our low market ladies, and I know that we're going to keep doing that year on year. So definitely something to celebrate. I think also my other thing would be, for women, be more confident. We've got this, so be more confident and curious would be what I would say. And I guess, yeah. Happy International Women's Day, and thank you, Nick and Cotality, for having me on this great podcast.
No, that's brilliantly well said. I think, yeah, be confident and curious might be the name of the podcast. So we'll take that as a headline. No, that's brilliant. So yeah, thank you once again for coming on, and just want to say thanks for listening. Please do get in touch with any questions you've got. I can pass those on to Nicole if you've got any for her as well. Any thoughts for future guests or future podcasts we could be doing as well, please do get in touch. And be sure to go and download the latest Women in Property report for 2026, which will be available on our website right now. I just want to say thanks once again. My name is Nick. She's Nicole from Loan Market. You've been listening to New Zealand Property Market Podcast. Happy International Women's Day for 2026. Mā te wā.